Eastern and Western witnesses. In these lines of Eastern and Western witnesses, blending henceforth under the name of Waldenses, we have the conjunction of the teachers and the taught, the olive tree and the candlestick in the testimony borne, and so as to their avenging power of smiting the land which rejected them with plagues, and shutting it out from the dews of heaven, an illustration may be found in the declaration of Luther, with reference to his own days and those of Huss, that the Turks had been the avengers of the godly preachers who were then rejected and persecuted in Christendom, a saying equally applicable to the earlier visitations of the Saracens which scourged the witness-rejecting world during the earlier half of the 1260 years, and the words of Archbishop Peckham respecting England in the 14th century were equally applicable to the state of all Western Christendom, that the general spiritual destitution was such that the people resembled poor and needy ones who sought water and found none. How striking does the apocalyptic description contrast with the language used by Antichrist in his bulls of excommunication thundered against these very witnesses. We shut heaven against them. We send them famine and thirst and drought, and call fire from heaven to consume and devour them. Unquote. The faithful witnesses for Christ, having testified against the successively developed anti-Christian corruptions of the sacramental error, the mediatorship of departed saints, the idolatry, demon worship, sorceries, thefts, fornications, and murders of the apostate church and system, then toward the close of the 12th century, discovered that they had what they had before not known, that the bishop of the seven-hilled city was the true head of the great reigning apostasy and the Antichrist, or man of sin, described in Scripture. As soon as they had thus completed the whole of their testimony, forthwith the popedom, which had then established its supremacy over every state in Christendom, roused itself collectively in the Third Lateran General Council of 1179 and declared a war of extermination against them, commanding the secular sword to strike down what it called heresy. The commencement of this papal anti-witness war is strongly marked in European history. Bull followed bull, and council followed council, and persecution pursued the witnesses into every part of Europe. Everywhere the bloodhound spirit of the Inquisition tracked them, and the beast from the abyss, or papal power acting upon and directing the secular governments of Western Europe, condemned them to the cruelest punishments. Not the Waldenses only, but the Lollards and Wycliffes in England, the Hussites in Bohemia, and all who were inspired with the same spirit of witnessing for Christ, suffered persecution. It was marvelous, considering the might arrayed against them, that these witnesses endured as they did. Through 3 centuries, in spite of racks and prisons, of the sword and the flame, their voice was still raised in protestation against the lies of popery, and for the truth as it is in Jesus. At length, however, the 15th century drew to a close, after a furious renewal of crusades against the Waldenses of Dauphine and Piedmont, the Hussites in Bohemia. The attainment of the papal object seemed at hand, and victory nearly within its grasp. It was just what had been predicted, that the beast from the abyss should not only make war on them, but conquer and kill them. This figure of two symbolic witnesses being killed and lying dead is so strong as to signify nothing less than the complete silencing and apparent extermination of those they represent. There is but one period in European history when the anti-papal testimony was entirely silenced, and the popedom completely triumphant, namely, the opening of the 16th century, just before the Reformation, when in 1499 the Bohemian Church sent deputies to search throughout Europe for other churches of kindred anti-papal feeling and witness, such had been the silencing and exterminating effect of the Crusades carried on just a little before against the Waldenses, that none could be found. In the language of one historian, the agitations excited in former centuries by the Waldenses, Albigenses, and afterwards by the Bohemians, and had been suppressed and extinguished by counsel and by the sword. In the words of another, the 16th century opened with the prospect of all others, the gloomiest in the eyes of every true Christian. Corruption both in doctrine and practice had exceeded all bounds. The Waldenses were too feeble to molest the popedom, and the Hussites, worn out by a long series of contentions, were at length reduced to silence. So again another, everything was quiet, every heretic exterminated, and the whole Christian world supinely acquiesced in the enormous absurdities inculcated upon it. Of course, inculcated upon it by the great apostasy and its man of sin,